Right, there, battery in the phone died. So I'll give you a minute to get back on, and if anyone is watching. The ability to produce loads like this is not dependent on you sticking the bullet in the lands of your rifle. It's not relevant. You can produce very accurate and affordable ammunition from factory length ammunition using sound principles and sound fundamentals on brass. Good. A few more people coming. I'm sorry about that. The battery on my phone died, so I'm now on a backup phone. The principles of setting up the dies and managing the processing of the brass are more relevant than the overall length of that case and how close the lands of your rifle are to the widest point on that bullet. What happens if you're shooting and you get some odd signs? So when you're going down that list of charges, we talk about this being the max load. The max for them is where the pressure is getting to the point where it's getting close to the recommended level of that chamber. So what does it feel like? What happens? So some of the things you will notice is if you do get to that situation, the bolt will be stiff to lift. And you'll think, oh, hang on, it's not going to open. It will open unless you've really blown the doors off. But what you might find is when you remove the case that you will see some signs of primer flattening. So one of the other things that you will see is if you look on this case, there are two spots in that case. One's round and one's square. And just show them there. That's one from the extractor gap in the bolt face, and the other is from the plunger that pushes the case out of the chamber. That is a sure sign that case is over pressure. So if you get anything like that on the back of your case, back off your charges and start, maybe a grain or so lower before you get anything. Now, this is actually one of mine, and the primer itself doesn't look as if it's got too much pressure. So it's because the case itself has got those marks that gave me the indication. I'll give you another example. That's an extreme example. So if you look on the edge, you can see where the brass has flowed into the gap of the extractor on the bolt face. It's blown the primer right out, and this one, if you watch, it doesn't actually sit flat on the surface because there is a raised section where that brass has flowed right out of the case. Now, interestingly, that's a factory round. Very unusual, something clearly gone wrong, but strange things do happen. The symptoms of that one are very, very stiff bolt lift. It needed a piece of wood to knock it open, and then when he opened it, the primer fell out. So that's an extreme pressure. That case, if you have anything like that, is garbage. Chuck it away. There's nothing you can do with that. It's so oversized. You can actually see the ring where, in the same case that this one sitting inside, that one has created a ring where it's expanded to the point where it's now wider than the chamber because of the overpressure situation. There are various tools that you can use online to jump in at different levels. I was trying to find another case here that has an example of overpressure. So this one, the difference between this and that one, for example, if you can see, the blue ring on the federal one in my hand has quite a bit of gap between the edge of the primer and the edge of the primer pocket of the brass. This one, if you can see, it's flattened right out, and it's got a very sharp edge, and the flow of the primer has filled in the gap compared to that one. This one's got quite a rounded edge to it, whereas it was the same shape as it was when it went in. That one, much flatter. Same deal, clear sign that that's way over pressure. So you don't need to be running mad pressures to get anything. You don't need to be chasing velocity in this scenario. If you were to extend this and start shooting groups across the entire range here and split the difference so that you've got 0.2 of a grain, 38.5, 38.7, 39, 39.2, you'll find that when you go through, you'll get varying group size, and it'll go down and down and down until you get a very small group, and then it'll start growing again, and it'll get bigger, and then you'll probably find that it'll go down again. So within that range, if you start looking at the range long enough, you'll see the node for accuracy, where in simple terms, as it's been explained to me, and I'm by no means an expert in this, when you pull the trigger, your barrel has a certain amount of flex in it, and it whips up and down, and you can see this on the very high rate frame cameras and the videos on YouTube. The muzzle is doing this. What you're trying to achieve is that your bullet is released when the muzzle is at its most static point, so it's a repeatable point. It's at the top of its oscillation. It just gets there, stops, bang, bullet comes out, and the barrel carries on. If it's coming out in the middle of the barrel's travel, you will find that you're probably going to get groups that are a little bit bigger. They're all probably very similar. If you were to shoot all the you would just end up with one big group, probably no more than 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. The amount of powder that you put in these is not impacting your groups to the point where you're not able to use any of them, which is why the Lee kit comes with a scoop, and the scoop has a size on it somewhere. There we are, 2.8 cc. On the Lee chart, they've actually got powder somewhere. There we are. They've got powder recommendations, and they have volumes, scoop size. So this will tell you exactly which one you need to use. They'll have an underlined one, which is a recommended one for the 243 and this scoop. No factory ammunition is loaded by weight. It's all loaded by volume. So hence the reason when I'm chucking these on the thrower, it's actually still very, very accurate, because it's not the powder charge that's really impacting the variables in your load. It's a lot more to do with your brass and the neck tension. So if you get good consistent brass, use the same brand, use the same number of firings in each brass, and look after it by not oversizing it. Keep your powder charges sensible, and if you've got a repeatable way of measuring it, whether it's with a powder thrower or with the scales, then you should be able to produce some very accurate ammunition in no time at all. Before my other phone dies, I'm going to leave you to it. If any of you have any questions, feel free to message us through the Facebook page. I will probably do this again, maybe focusing on a few of the elements there and looking at particular aspects. It's a lot of information to try and cover in a short video, and thank you for watching.